Agile is fragile. Waterfall is water fail. When some projects inevitably go wrong, the first question from senior leadership is almost always about the productivity of engineering teams. This then sparks cycles of internal witch hunts, dubious PowerPoints, and visits from so called expert consultants. Objective and quantitative measurement for software engineering productivity remains an elusive goal since forever. At a fundamental level, raw code output isn't comparable to the output of a manufacturing assembly line. There is no uniform product rolling off a belt. So we have to go one layer higher, via coding task or ticket completion. Though closing engineering tickets doesn't quite equate neatly to completing discrete tasks like those of IT support or customer care. As a result, popular modern metrics often shift the focus another abstraction layer higher towards DevOps-centric indicators, such as deployment frequency, change lead time, and incident management, most notably captured by Google's DORA metric. There are also more holistic frameworks like Microsoft's SPACE model that blends qualitative and quantitative views. DevOps metrics are useful, probably the best pure engineering metrics we have today, but they still fall short of answering the most important question for business leaders. How does these numbers translate to engineering value? To close this gap, some leaders take a more pragmatic route, measuring productivity by the success rate in completion of engineering projects, especially those that are directly impacting financial performance. But at this level of abstraction, what's being measured isn't just engineering productivity. It includes all interdependent teams, from adjacent departments to external contributors. Even so, project delivery efficiency remains the de facto proxy for engineering productivity for senior management, and that's understandable. But it still begs the question, what is actually the best way to measure engineering productivity? And here's the truth. Engineering productivity is often a red herring. It only surfaces when projects or company-wide initiatives with heavy engineering involvement start to fall short. How often do failed business initiatives get chalked up to engineering's inability to code the impossible, interpret the unintelligible, or meet timelines that were never feasible to begin with? The real issue is a flawed mindset, trying to tie engineering productivity to business outcomes rather than actual outputs. Measuring outcome instead of output certainly has value, but the two should never be consciously conflated together. The ideology behind how to deliver a software project outcome has been evolving for over 50 years, starting from the waterfall model of the 1970s to Agile, Scrum, and their many derivatives since the early 2000s. Along the way, we've seen other flavors like extreme programming and rapid application development, most of which never went mainstream. So, viewed on a spectrum, these methodologies represent two main schools of thought. Waterfall, which is heavy upfront planning, single execution, getting it right the first time, versus Agile, which is loose planning, iterative execution, and getting it right eventually. While engineering teams often understand these models deeply, other business units may not, and that's the crux of the problem. If non-engineering departments expect outcome-based results, but doesn't understand or can't work within those engineering frameworks being used, misalignment is inevitable, and the project fails together, not in isolation. Imagine a marketing department pushing for a complex web campaign featuring multiple new user flows, all to be launched on a fixed date to drive major sales spike. Budget constraints may force them to lock in hours with external creative resources, reinforcing a big bang launch mentality. This is a disaster waiting to happen. This project is purely outcome driven, with no guarantee that delivering all of the requested features will achieve the desired results. Meanwhile, engineering is forced to meet an arbitrary deadline, likely leading to scope reductions, last-minute requirement changes, and ultimately the perception that engineering failed. A better approach? Well, adopt Agile. Instead of betting everything on a grand launch, roll out smaller testable components, A/B test them with real users, review, revise, and reiterate based on the result data collected. This is the core principle of Agile. Gradually build confidence in the outcome rather than assuming it from day one. However, if the marketing team operates under a use it or lose it funding model, adopting an agile approach becomes much more difficult. The structural misalignment remains. On the contrary, for projects where the output logically implies the outcome with a high degree of certainty, such as a system hard cutover, a core infrastructure migration, or a platform-wide upgrade, the waterfall methodology becomes not just appropriate, but necessary. Take, for example, a financial institution migrating its core banking system. Attempting this through agile sprints, deploying partial components in iterative releases, would risk transaction mismatches, data integrity issues, and system instability. In such high-stakes, tightly regulated environment, the cost of failure is going to be enormous. Success depends on meticulous planning, end-to-end integration, and a single, coordinated execution. Exactly the strength of the waterfall approach. In short, pure engineering productivity metrics are valuable, but only internally, as they provide benchmark for improvement over time, but they offer very little value externally when it comes to business alignment. What the business really wants is a reliable rate of successful outcomes delivered by engineering. But remember, Agile makes no promise about final outcome. It's about adapting and evolving through iterations, sometimes even pivoting entirely if needed, to minimize loss. Waterfall, in contrast, assumes a fixed known outcome and focus all energy on planning and precise execution. Both approaches come with risks. Agile can endlessly iterate without ever reaching the desired outcome. Waterfall can spend months planning for something that's obsolete by the time it's delivered. What's truly needed is alignment, a shared understanding and commitment between engineering and the business to choose and adopt the right execution model for each project. Productivity isn't about Agile versus Waterfall. It's about collaboration, clarity, and context. This is Alex from Contrary Engineering, wishing you best of luck on your engineering journey.